Greetings, my dear friends. Commander Chakrapani or Chax. Once again, I am back with a new edition of ChaxSimplifies. This time I have with me Brigadier YVR Vijay. YVR Vijay is a known expert as far as fuels, energy, fossil fuels, as well as when we come to the new age energy, green hydrogen, brown hydrogen, solar, wind. He's an expert in all this. But why am I telling you this? Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, good evening, Chakrapani. So I am YVR Vijay. We are course-mates, incidentally. And I joined the army in 82, spent 30 years in the army, and then I came out and got into the renewable energy sector. And I was CEO of India's largest renewable energy company, Suzlon. And I was CEO there till 2021 end, 6.5 years. And 1/3 of India's renewable energy, as far as wind is concerned, was being handled by me. And since then, I have been actively involved in energy issues, hydrogen, wind, solar, and basically discussing about various aspects of the energy supply chain and sources. So we are in the perfect moment to discuss energy because of what's happening around us in the world today.
Absolutely, Vijay. The thing is, India has a challenge. India is in a dilemma. No, not really a dilemma. It's a trilemma. Three things we have a problem with. Number one, we have to secure our energy so that we can grow. The second is this energy has to be equitable, which means it has to be affordable. And thirdly, whatever energy we generate, it has to be sustainable. Now, when we look at all these three things, we realize that each of them will or could contradict or come up with different requirements for each other. How do you place this trilemma of India, and how do you say this?
So basically, what is energy security? Energy security is having enough energy at stable prices at all times whenever you need it, irrespective of the crisis going on in the world. It is having enough reserves to tide you through a crisis when you are not able to procure. And various countries have defined what should be their reserves. So basically, if you look at energy security, there are 6 pillars to energy security. Some of them you covered. First is accessibility. You must have access to energy. That energy could be any form. It should be in normal fuel, it could be in gas, it could be in renewable energy, it could be nuclear energy. You must have access to the energy in the form that you need it, and they could be of any type. The next is affordability. It's no use having energy which suddenly goes so high in cost that it slows down your entire growth. A lot of manufacturing sectors come to a halt or become non-competitive, or the common man, he has no access to it. When we talk of accessibility, the accessibility comes, one is of the fuel, the second is of the supply chain. Today we are seeing in the world a particular supply chain route is tying us all down. So we need accessibility to various supply chains. The next aspect is diversity. Energy has to be diversified. Diversified in type of energy source. I just gave a few examples. You have your normal petroleum, you have nuclear, you have renewable energy, you have hydrogen, the new age energies.
You have coal,
You have coal, of course, a huge source.
LNG.
All gas. And you need diversity in regions from where you're procuring. You need diversity in the supply chains from where you're getting it. So you've got to completely diversify. You've got to have diversity in the markets from whom you're procuring. Next is you need to have strategic reserves. Because the supply chain can get choked. Currently, the world is getting choked right now, and suddenly you realize, how many days do I need? Do I need 20 days, 30 days, 40 days? The Indian Union Minister Hardeep Puri had said that our plan is for 90 days, but we have 74 days capacity. Now, capacity has no meaning. We need inventory, actual inventory.
Correct.
And when you look at our inventory, we have just about 25 days of petroleum reserves right now in India. If we are choked for 25 days, we are out of petrol. We have another 25 days of refined petroleum products. And the last is sustainability and the ability to transit to different sources of energy. So we should have sustainability of the current sources. We should have the ability to transition out from fossil dependency onto the new age energies. So that's what India should look at.
Right. So here I have an interesting bit of statistics.
Yeah.
You know, today we need somewhere in the neighborhood of 1600 MOTE. Is MOTE or MTOE? Right? Million tons equivalent of oil. Our requirement is about 1650 million tons equivalent of oil. What we will have need by the year 2040, it will rise to 3500, which means more than double in just less than 14 years. That is one part. Second, today our energy mix is, broadly speaking, coal accounts for about 55%, give or take a bit. Oil accounts for a little over 30%. Gas is about 7%. Renewables are about 15% of this entire total energy mix. But when you take only electricity generation into account, renewables come to more than 30%. Here, our requirement of generating electricity, we are getting it much less from fossil fuels. That's at 48%. This is all petroleum products, petrol, diesel, gas, and 52% comes from renewable. So here we are in an interesting situation. Yet, our requirement is to be able to get more and more energy. As we grow, we will have greater requirements. Now here comes the dilemma. What are the basic sources of energy? To my mind, I see coal, you have to keep diminishing, at least if not in percentage, but in terms of the amount of coal we burn, so that we become more renewable, more green. We need to increase our electricity generation from non-fossil fuels. That is hydro, solar, wind. Solar, wind, hydro, all of them have limitations, whether in terms of time of the year or time of the day. Whether there is wind or there is no wind, there is sun or there is no sun, whether there is enough water or not enough water. Then you have, of course, your gas, dependent on LNG. Then you have finally the nuclear. Where do you think India is moving as far as changing this energy mix is concerned, and what will play an important, crucial role as far as energy security for India is concerned?
So let's look at where do we need energy. The first place you need energy is for electricity. Next is for your transportation needs, and then for your industries. As far as electricity goes, all said and done, India is quite stable. We are one of the least consuming countries if you compare us with Europe or USA. But for our current requirements, we are quite stable. We are not dependent on oil for generating electricity. So even if there is a crisis that's going on currently in the world due to this Iran war, we are not affected because electricity comes from a mix of hydro, renewable, it comes through coal, some amount of electricity through gas and nuclear. We are pretty stable. We have got a capability of something like 500 gigawatts installed capacity of electricity in India.
Right.
200 out of that is your renewable, and the rest is a mix of the others. So we are stable. But when it comes to our requirement for transport, that is where we are heavily dependent on oil. And that is where we are struggling today. India's requirement is something like 5 million barrels per day of oil. That works out to 1800 million barrels, 1.8 billion barrels of oil in a year. Our annual import bill on just oil is something like $130 billion at $70. Today it has gone up to $90 per barrel, and our cost has gone up to $160 billion. So oil is where we are struggling. If costs go up, our whole import bill goes for a 6. 25% of my import bill today, India's import bill, is based on oil only.
Right.
The third aspect is for industry. Industry needs oil products, carbon, as well as other sources of energy for the steel industry, for the concrete industry, and there are a number of industries. And that is an area where you can easily transit into hydrogen. But currently we are nowhere in that. We are still dependent on hydrocarbons. So that's where we are as far as energy.
Right. You were very right when you said about oil and our dependence on oil. Oil comes from the maritime domain. Essentially, we get about 40% to 45% of our oil through the Straits of Hormuz. The rest of it comes through the Straits of Bab el Mandab and the Straits of Malacca. Straits of Hormuz is the place where today we have a problem because those straits are blocked. Sadly, not so much by Iran, but by Lloyd's sitting in London because they have jacked up the insurance prices. In fact, they have actually stopped insuring merchant vessels, the big, huge tankers who are sitting in the Gulf, Persian Gulf, and they cannot sail without insurance. So, Straits of Hormuz is a problem. That is a major geopolitical risk. The other aspect of geopolitical risk comes from the Straits of Bab el Mandab or the Red Sea. That is exactly where the Houthis, along with the help from Iran, were making their own show, making their own presence felt by firing missiles into ships that were transiting. The piracy also added to this problem, and that is where you had a large number of countries which put in their navies to safeguard this flow of oil. Today we have 2 Indian naval ships that are constantly in the Red Sea and Straits of Bab el Mandab to escort the ships. Do you foresee something like this happening as far as Straits of Hormuz is concerned? And if you foresee that, how do you think this entire regulating aspect will happen, safety and security aspect will happen? Because today we have a situation where ships are not coming out.
So, about 60% of India's requirement of fuel is from the Middle East. We got it down to 50 because we went up on Russian fuel. It has come down due to the recent tariff pressure that came on us, but we are again getting back to that. And every day, something like 20 million barrels of oil pass through the Strait of Hormuz. And more than half of it is for Asia and a large part of it is for India. So if the Strait of Hormuz is choked off, and currently it is choked off not exactly physically or militarily, but as you brought out correctly, by the insurance companies and by the shipping companies who are not keen on going through that area because of the risk, then we are in trouble. The time has come for us to recognize that the Navy, for big countries like us and the ones who are bigger than us, the role of Navy is much beyond your regional waters. The role of Navy today is we have to protect our shipping lanes of communication. We have to protect our logistics, which is maritime. And it is the big logistics which come through the sea. Logistics which come by air is hardly anything.
Right.
So there's a need to dramatically increase the protection that we give. And the next important thing is diplomacy. India is, and the days have gone when you could be aligned to just one side and feel comfortable.
Right.
We have seen what happened.
Right.
We were slightly leaning towards Russia. There was huge pressure from USA which came in. We heard what USA asked us to do, and we followed it to some extent, and suddenly you land up in an Iran crisis. We are getting back to Russia. So there's a great need for a balanced energy diplomacy. We have to stay absolutely non-aligned on energy diplomacy. We cannot come under pressure and not buy from the source. So we have to strengthen our supply chains coming from south of Africa, through the Hormuz, through the Red Sea, through Russia. Hormuz and the Red Sea will always be in crisis. The nature of the beast out there is it's an area where there will be a crisis. So our supply chains from Russia and south of Africa have to be kept strong.
Right. You very correctly and nicely brought out the vulnerability as far as India is concerned. One is our import dependence. From 70% now, it will rise to 85% as far as some projections are concerned by the year 2040, unless we significantly jack up the nuclear part. We have the issues of maritime choke points, especially the ones that govern the Persian Gulf area, Bab al-Mandab and Hormuz. And third, you very rightly spoke about the strategic buffers. Now, when Hardeep Puri says that we have capacity for 70 days, the capacity, are correct, has no real meaning. Do we have that oil there? There are people who claim it is only 15 days. There are people who claim it is 30 days. Let's assume it is 30 days or 40 days, whatever. Then it's not just oil we need. We need gas. If we start rationing gas, there are industrial activity will come to a standstill, or at least will slow down, which means economy slows down. And then, of course, comes the issues of structural issues as far as India is concerned. Do you really think the India's national grid, whether it's in terms of oil supply chain or the electricity grid, is capable of handling the enlarged demands which will come up in the next few years today? If not, what should India do?
So our daily requirement of oil is something like 5 million barrels per day.
Correct.
And we are producing only 600,000.
By and large, this has been flat for the last 15 years or so.
And it is going to go up. We have found some good sources, and by 2030 we'll hit 1 million.
Just one question here. Why do you think India has not really moved into oil discovery, despite the fact we know that there was oil in Bombay High, but we have not got any new wells, same as Krishna Godavari Basin? Why have we not moved there?
Actually, there has been a lot of strategic mistakes when India has handled its energy security. We have always tried to be commercially savvy, but we have been strategically naive. And that is why we are running into this problem, and we keep running into this problem. We have run into it earlier as well. We have always focused on getting the oil at the best possible rate for 1 year or 2 years.
Right.
We have never looked at really expanding our storage. 2 years back, 5,000 crores was set aside to increase the storage. It was not spent. And it is this money we get from an industry which over the last 5 years has given us something like 36 lakh crores in taxes.
Right.
But we should use that to spend it to increase our security. What is the use of saying my policy is 90 days, I have 74 days capacity, but my inventory is just 25 days. So there has been strategic mistakes trying to, you got to balance a huge economy, but you cannot neglect energy security. That's becoming clearer and clearer.
One aside question. Today India is called the refiner of the world. We can refine virtually every type of crude, from the light crude to the sweet crude to the sour crude to the heavy crude. We are probably the only country in the world which can handle this entire gamut. Venezuela can provide us with 1 million barrels of oil a day. From Russia, we are getting somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.2, 1.3 million barrels as on date. Despite US sanctions, it had gone up to 1.8 million barrels, it's now down to about 1.3. We're getting about 2 million barrels from the Middle East. And the rest came from all other sundry sources. Why is it we have not really developed these sources to have sustainable 5 million plus barrels and refine that much more? Because everyone knows we are the only ones who can refine it.
Yeah. So one is we have got a refining capability more than 5 million barrels.
Correct.
It is a great source of revenue for India. We export our refined petroleum products to Europe. In fact, that came into big news when we saw the USA was very antagonized by the fact that we were buying Russian oil, refining it and selling the refined products to Europe. But there has been a lack of focus, frankly. We should have been developing at least 10 types of Bombay highs over the last 50 years.
Right, absolutely.
Leaving Bombay high, there's been nothing else which has come up. Now off Andaman, we have found something, Godavari Basin something. But we have yet to invest adequately into drilling that oil, tapping that oil.
And
We have always looked for public-private partnerships, etc. But that's not the way. These are areas where you have to physically invest as the government.
Right.
And we have missed out on that. So as I bought out, we are about 20% in-house manufacture, 80% is import. And we have to reduce this. What is the way? What is our short term? What do we do? Now there's a crisis. Your Strait of Hormuz is not giving you enough oil, or it may stop giving you soon. We have seen that in the last 2 weeks, not in 2 weeks, in 10 days, oil has gone from the early 70s to 90. Today it is around $92 per barrel, and it is going to hit 120 by the end of March if this crisis doesn't get resolved. For every dollar increase, our oil import bill goes up by something like $10 billion.
Wow.
Today we have from 130, our oil import bill is suddenly touching 170. And if we hit 150, as many people, the doomsdayers are predicting by end of March, from 25% of your total import bill, suddenly you will find that oil will be 40% of your bill. We just cannot afford it. So what do we do immediately? To get over this crisis, we have to start buying from wherever it is available, even if it is slightly costlier, because we cannot let it go into a place where we are running out of fuel.
Right.
So maximum, even though we are planning earlier 30-35% from Russia, whatever is available from Russia on sea or coming out of Russia, we should start buying it. We should buy from every market possible as much oil, even if it's costlier. We have to go in for longer term deals, not 1 year deals, etc., so that you have some sort of long term security. Second is you have to shift your dependence on oil, which is very, very important. How do you shift your dependence on oil? One is increasing your renewable energy. Our target for renewable energy is 500 gigawatts by 2030. We are at 200 today. I doubt if we'll touch 350. So we cannot afford to lag on these parameters. But just renewable energy, if you increase, you are increasing your electricity requirement. Your electricity requirements are coming up, are being met. But what about transport? What about industry? So the second part you have to do is focus on shifting from your transport dependence on oil to electric. Your two-wheelers,
the
your
EVs come in.
four-wheelers, your buses, etc. EVs come in. When we reach 500 gigawatts, we will be reducing our requirement of oil by about 5 to 10%. So instead of spending 150 billion, you come down to 135 billion. And the return on investment on renewable energy is about 13-14%.
Which is very good.
It is excellent. The next area, which is even more promising, where we have to really put in effort, is on green hydrogen. We have a target of 5 million metric tons of green hydrogen by 2030. We will not touch even 1, or maybe we'll be at 0.5 by 2030, because we were going slow, dragging our feet, the way we do it on all aspects of energy security. But now it is getting late. So we must really push on that.
Right.
5 million metric tons drop you by another 5 to 6% on your oil import bill. So you save another 10 billion. The cost of 5 million metric tons, it involves a capex investment of about $150 billion. But the ROI on hydrogen is almost 20%, which is phenomenal.
Wow.
So this is an area where we can get in money easily. You will find investors 18-20%. If you give an ROI, industry people will easily fund this. Governments will fund, big players will fund it. So we got to do this switch, and the more we switch to EVs and hydrogen, the less our dependence. In fact, if we go up to 50 million metric tons by 2040, so at least half of your current expenditure on oil is covered by hydrogen.
Right. But here there is a small structural issue, or issue that we are not spoken about. One, for electricity, let's take solar. It is available only for certain times of the day. That means you must have storage capacity of that energy that you have generated, so that it is available 24/7.
Yeah.
For that you need critical minerals. Right.
So
The solar panels, again the same critical minerals dependencies come in. And then of course you have, in terms of the grid sustainable, is the grid sustainable? Is the grid capable of handling this kind of extreme changes, surges in demand?
So the sun shines in the day, the wind may blow, may not blow. In India, 80% of your wind energy comes during the monsoon 5 months, and only about 10-20% of the wind energy comes in the rest of the months. That's called the low wind season. The high wind season is from May to October. But what balances this whole thing out is the correct combination of wind and solar. And depending on the area where you are, you either increase the solar or the wind. And to get the round the clock power supply is where storage comes in. Now, storage is not just lithium ion batteries when you come to power utilities. When you come to transport, yes, right now lithium ion. Storage can be pump storage by using hydro. There are methods of storing energy in the form of through sodium ion batteries, through heating sand. There are a number of ways which you can store energy, and we have to explore the whole thing. So there is no problem in that, and we are seeing a huge progress in sodium ion batteries. Now, sodium ion is not suitable for vehicles because the size of the battery becomes very big, but for power utilities we can have it.
There is something which is land based and not moving at all.
Yeah,
you could have a sodium
much
ion.
heavier batteries you can have, and that's what's going to happen. So that will be looked after, and there's a lot of research going on. In fact, if you go to any big university, technical university, you'll find an area of heavy research is going into storage technologies, and it's continuously improving. The cost of storage is coming down by 50% every 5 years. So 14-15% every year the cost is coming down. And storage will meet your requirement. So hybrid renewable energy is the way ahead. A mix of solar, wind, storage. Storage could be any type.
Right.
Hydro is another area which, because of environmental issues and all, we were going a bit slow, but there's a huge potential for small and mini hydros. Right across. If you look at, let us say, our neighboring country, Bhutan. Bhutan economy is entirely running on hydropower.
Yeah.
And we got the whole Himalayas available to us. We can build small plants so that the environmental risk is taken care of. So there should not be too much of an issue on this.
Right. Now you talk about small, there's also the small modular nuclear reactors. And these small nuclear reactors, India did do a couple of very interesting steps. One, they made changes to the Nuclear Act so that the liability issues are taken care of. Second, gone into agreements or partnerships from US to Canada to France and Russia. Where do you see India moving as far as nuclear energy is concerned?
Actually, if you look at various forms of energy, the cheapest source of energy is still nuclear energy. All others, it's
also
less.
probably the safest.
Now it is among the safest. There was a lot of noise when the tsunami hit Japan, and
Before that,
and Chernobyl was there, but a lot of work has gone into making nuclear safer. There's something called LCOE when we talk of energy. It's the levelized cost of energy.
Mm-hmm.
So the levelized cost of energy which we have in India today and the world all over is around between 3 rupees 50 paisa to 4 rupees a unit.
Okay.
If you look at wind and solar combination, it is slightly below that.
Mm-hmm.
Nuclear, once a plant is well established, let us look at Kundankulam, which is at 2 gigawatts.
Yeah.
The cost of power from there is around 1 rupee 20 paisa. So that is the difference. So we need to go heavily into nuclear and small nuclear plants. Large ones have their own problems, but a number of small nuclear reactors. Similarly, in hydrogen, the size of the electrolyzer you can get into smaller ones. Have it distributed across India, because transportation of hydrogen is an issue. You'll have to have pipelines, transport. But if you have a number of smaller electrolyzers across India, it solves your problem.
Right. So India's nuclear ambitions are less than 5 gigawatts today to over 100 gigawatts by the year 2040. Do you see that being achieved?
2040 is possible because it's giving you time to react. Any target of 2030, whether it's in renewable, whether it's in hydrogen, whether it's in nuclear, we are not meeting.
We are not meeting it.
But 2040 gives you time to really now focus, push in effort. So we have to now focus on all these three, that is nuclear, hydrogen, renewable, and our strategic reserves. That is never to be neglected. We have to go to 90, 120. In fact, I was reading an article the other day. China in 2025 has every day increased its strategic storage capacity by 1 million barrels per day.
Yeah,
so in
correct.
1 year it's increased it to 360 odd million barrels. That is like 72 days of India's requirement. It met it.
China used to be about 5 years back at less than 30 days of strategic reserve. It is now almost at 75 plus. US is at 90-day reserve. But US does not have an oil issue. It has enough and more of shale gas. Plus Alaska is swimming in oil. So net.
To this China issue, another very interesting thing. When we look at India, what we do on renewable energy or green hydrogen, we look at an annual IRR.
Right.
So we look at getting projects functional in the first year itself, so that some revenue starts flowing in, and that creates a lot of complications. When it comes to China, they think much more long term. I've seen when I was in Suzlon, we had manufacturing facilities in China. China laid down, in thousands turbines without the grid following it. In India, the grid and the turbine must come up together so that at the end of the first year we are producing power. China installed turbines over 5 years and the grid followed. Then there was a focus on the grid and the grid caught up. So when they actually required power, maybe 5 years down the line, they had
enough power for them.
They never slowed themselves down. So we got to think beyond, annual IRRs and think of 5-year IRR, 10-year IRRs.
Right. So effectively, Vijay, you told us a few things that India must do as far as getting into our energy security is concerned.
Gas is another area we've not discussed.
Yeah, let's
we
talk
have
about
done nothing about gas.
I was going to come to just that.
And today you see Qatar is in trouble. And
right.
Within a week, we are already seeing now in Bihar and West Bengal queues forming up, rationing is being thought of, being spoken of. We have come into that crisis scene. So gas is another area where a lot of work is to be done. We have to find our own sources of gas. There are enough. We've got to explore more, we've got to tap more, and also improve our supply chain.
Absolutely, because we are getting gas other than Qatar from Australia and America and the US. These are our two big suppliers. Why is it that we have not gone into longer term contracts? Is it just bureaucratic issues? Is it just short term thinking? Or is there something else to it?
It has been thinking with a very heavy commercial mindset. What if the cost falls in the future? Then we are stuck with a costlier cost. But when it comes to security, you have to think beyond plain cost, which is where we made a blunder on oil, on gas, on both these. We have to go in for longer terms contracts, 5-year, 10-year contracts. It doesn't matter if it costs slightly more. For all you know, it will cost slightly less when a crisis like this happens.
Absolutely.
So
one case in point is the cost of fuel or oil from Russia. 3 years back, the discount was about $20. 2 years back, it reduced to about $10. Last year was $5. Right now, for the month of January, February, we were getting it almost $1 or $2 discount. Today, Russia wants a $5 premium on the cost of oil. Especially when Russian crude is heavy crude. Heavy crude generally comes at a discount to the light crude because it is more difficult to process and get. Yes, it is very heavy in bitumen, which comes as your byproduct, which helps us as far as making roads, etc. is concerned. But that is a fuel which would be at significant discount, and we are now stuck with having to pay premium. Again, short-sightedness. So, Vijay,
there's a lot of energy diplomacy in this. We should never have backed off when under the pressure of tariffs.
Correct.
We could have waited another 2 weeks possibly for the Supreme Court ruling on tariffs. There was a hurry to sign, maybe. I mean, I'm not competent enough to comment on that. It's just a viewpoint. So the Russians are now demanding their pound of flesh. They removed the discounts, and why not? They are cash strapped as a nation. They need money.
They need the money.
And right now the world is in a crisis. They'll get the money.
Oh yes, and I'm sure Europe will go in and get more and more gas and oil from Russia. So effectively, Vijay, what you've told us is, putting it in a very quick nutshell, as far as what should India do. India should be looking at all three aspects. One, oil. Energy security is dependent on our oil supplies, our maritime supply chains, which means sources, prices, and sustained long-term contracts.
Yeah.
Right. Second thing, for oil, we have to focus on exploration, drilling, and exploitation of that oil or whatever we have, which we have not done so far. It has to be on a war footing. Then a corollary is we have to generate or develop our maritime resources, our ships, the navy, which will ensure safety and security of our supply chains. Then, of course, you've touched upon the renewables. And we have to focus on these at a war footing, and we can significantly bring down our oil bills by as much as 20% or more if we focus on hydrogen, if we focus on a mix of solar and wind, and of course the hydro.
Yes, renewable energy, electrification of our transportation,
Correct.
and hydrogen. These three mix can get it down by at least 10% by 2030, and if we are really aggressive, by 25-30% by 2040.
By 2040.
But India's requirement is, the moment you switch to hydrogen, remember 5 million metric tons of hydrogen, to produce that you have to put in so much more renewable energy. We want green. So one of the big decisions we will take is pink hydrogen, red hydrogen, what comes from nuclear. So far we are still not classifying it as green, whereas
Right.
it is as clean as anything. We got to reclassify and treat red and pink hydrogen as green. So we push nuclear power also into this.
Absolutely, because that was my next thing which I would have come up, because you have to focus on nuclear power, not made just the big huge ones like the Kundakulam 2 gigawatts, but also the small and modular ones.
Yeah, going for 100 megawatt plant.
100 megawatts plant. At the same time, we have to start working on grid stabilization, transmission, all
Coming
of
to
those
the-
things.
Coming to the grid, there is a very good plan in place.
Mhm.
There's a green corridor which is coming up. Today, a person can set up a turbine in Tamil Nadu and sell his electricity somewhere in Bengal. So the grid is now enabling easy trading, and the grid is strengthening. We are going beyond the normal 220 kV grid lines. We are going up to 765. The grid is strengthening. The Power Grid Corporation of India has got giant projects in place. Funding is the problem right now, but the grid, there is a plan in place. And today, no longer is grid curtailment required, that you are producing more and you have to shut down.
Right. So, it is a great pleasure to have a chat with you, Vijay, on these very interesting, very critical subjects. Effectively, you're painting, I won't call it a rosy picture, but you're painting an optimistic picture that yes, if today is not so great, tomorrow will be better, but day after tomorrow will definitely be good, much, much better.
If you do certain things.
If you do certain
things.
Absolutely.
But we are in for a major crisis this year,
Right.
because this oil import bill is going to go from 130 to close to 200. So from 25% of your import bill, you will be somewhere in the mid 30s. There will be a crunch, there will be inflation, there will be energy inflation, there will be a slowdown of growth, which is going to hurt us. Let's hope that it all gets resolved as fast as possible. But to get out of this, we have to start buying oil from wherever feasible and increasing our strategic reserves.
Right. So if I was Hardeep Singh Puri, I would do these two things. One, send Indian Navy to escort ships which are stuck in the Persian Gulf and say, come, I will take you to my oil refineries safely. I bear the insurance costs. Because unless those ships are unloaded and they go back there again, they cannot load again. And within a few days, you'll have an issue where oil wells may need to be capped or stopped because there is no place to store that oil which is coming out. The second thing I would do is to go into a long-term contract with Russia, even if it is at a premium, and to say, okay, US, you do what you feel like, but this is my need. Thank you very much, Vijay. It is a pleasure talking to you.
It was wonderful.
Thanks a
so
lot.
Interesting.
Very interesting. Thank you.